Most of us have this idea that high performance is all about speed. We think the fastest thinkers, the quickest responders, those are the people who win. But there's a quieter, kind of counterintuitive truth in psychology. High performance usually isn't about how fast you can go. It's about how effectively you can stop. See, most people spend their lives in this state of constant automatic reaction, and they never even realize that their greatest potential is being drained by the very emotions they think are driving them forward. This quote right here just gets to the heart of it all. If you've ever felt like your own mind is both your single greatest asset and your absolute heaviest burden, well, you're not alone, and we're going to explore exactly why that is. Okay, so let's dive right into our first section, the overthinking achiever. If you've ever found yourself feeling completely mentally exhausted, even when, from the outside, your life looks totally fine, this is for you. Does any of this sound familiar? Your mind just rarely slows down. You find yourself replaying conversations in your head hours after they're over. You second-guess decisions you've already made. Maybe you even feel a bit isolated when you're in a big group. Look, this isn't just random stress. There's real psychology here that shows higher intelligence is often linked with much stronger internal thinking activity. Your brain is literally built for continuous processing. And this is a really, really important distinction to make. This constant mental activity isn't automatically anxiety. A lot of the time, it's actually a sign of cognitive depth. Your brain is wired to analyze, to see patterns, and to process reality on a much deeper level. It's not a flaw. It's a feature of your intelligence. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. Over time, if that powerful mental engine never gets a chance to switch off, it leads to some serious emotional fatigue. Your brain gets stuck in this reactive, survival-oriented state, just constantly scanning for the next threat. And I want to be clear, this is not a lack of discipline on your part. It's simply the weight of a mind that hasn't yet learned how to handle its own intensity. And that brings us to the core insight of this whole explainer, the real game changer, the power of the pause. This is the psychological mechanism that separates a reactive mind from a regulated, truly high-performing one. So what is it? What's the secret sauce? What is it that truly separates a mind that's just reacting all day from one that's genuinely high-performing? It's not about being smarter in the way we usually think about it. The answer is something psychologists call cognitive inhibition. Now, that sounds fancy, but put simply, it's just the ability to stop an automatic emotional reaction and choose a response instead. People with high IQs often have this incredible, unique ability to create this mental gap, this pause between feeling an emotion and taking an action. Now, let's be super clear. This has nothing to do with being cold or emotionless. It's about executive control. That's the part of your brain responsible for self-regulation and restraint. Our brains, they evolved to respond really quickly to a tiger in the bushes, but they didn't really evolve to respond wisely to a stressful email. This skill, this pause, is the bridge. And this chart just illustrates the difference perfectly. Look, when you react instantly, your brain stays in that primitive survival mode. You're just a passenger to your own biology. But when you pause, everything shifts. Your brain moves into reasoning mode. It engages logic, self-control, and it allows for something called cognitive flexibility, which is just the ability to update your beliefs instead of digging in your heels and clinging to some defensive, emotional position. That tiny little gap changes everything. Okay, so that's the theory. Let's get practical and see how this actually works in real life with our next section, reaction versus reason. How do you actually do this? The language we use inside our own heads literally shapes our reality. The emotional, reactive brain jumps to, "This is a disaster, I hate this," which just spikes your stress and completely blocks your ability to think clearly. But the regulated, more stoic brain, it uses neutral language. It says, "Okay, this is inconvenient," or, "Well, that didn't work, what can I adjust?" It's a small shift, but it keeps your brain in problem-solving mode instead of panic mode. So here's what that mental process actually looks like in action. Step 1, a stressor hits you. A sharp email, a sudden mistake you just made. Step 2, you pause. That's cognitive inhibition kicking in. Step 3, there's a shift. The energy moves away from pure emotion and into your reasoning centers. And finally, step 4, a calm, deliberate response is chosen. The best part? This is a skill you can train. And for many people, this isn't just some productivity hack. It's a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. Psychology shows us that people who grew up in really unpredictable environments often had to learn how to manage their emotions internally just to get by. They don't panic when things go wrong because their nervous system has been trained for years to prioritize a kind of survival-based composure. They aren't ignoring the fire. They're just refusing to let the smoke blind them. This all leads us to a completely new way of thinking about performance, and we're calling it the quiet strength. Because true high performance isn't about shouting over the noise or having the loudest opinion in the room. It is about the quiet strength of redirection, that incredible ability to control your own internal state, no matter what chaos is happening on the outside. And a mind that operates this way, well, it has some pretty distinct traits. It relies on internal validation, not on approval from the crowd. It thinks for itself and is actually comfortable standing alone. It values how things work over how they look, and it has a really stable sense of identity because it isn't being jerked around by every fleeting trend or emotional reaction. And one of the biggest benefits, maybe even a superpower, is what psychologists call error-based learning. See, when you can regulate your emotional reaction to making a mistake, you can then calmly review what actually went wrong. You start to see mistakes not as these huge failures of your character, but just as data for improvement. And that is one of the fastest ways to get better at, well, almost anything. Ultimately, it comes back to this. Your tendency to analyze your own emotions isn't a bug. It's a protective mechanism. It's what allows you to process reality more deeply and fully without being completely crushed by it. It's not about being distant. It's about having the right tools to handle the intensity of life. All right, let's bring this all together in our final section, your only performance hack. If there is one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this. True intelligence isn't loud. It is controlled. And it is found in those few seconds of the pause, that little gap where you get to decide who you are going to be in the face of what's happening to you. That's where high performance truly lives. So, I'll leave you with this question. The next time the world demands an immediate reaction from you, will you give yourself the luxury of the pause? Because you might just find that the clarity waiting for you in that silence is the only performance hack you ever really needed.